chat in and let us know where you're connecting in from. That's a great way just to break the ice. So I'd want to see that. So let's level set for a minute. When it comes to cyber and selling this stuff, you're going to hear vendors tell you things like, "Oh, buy my tool and you'll be an MSSP in an hour." Right? You're going to see, "Oh, just purchase this software and you're now a cyber expert." I want to tell you the reality. The reality is selling cyber is hard. The reality is being good at this takes work and effort. The reality is there's some things that you should not be biting off that you're not ready to chew yet. The reality is you can be wildly successful in this world of selling cybersecurity, but it takes some effort. It takes some work. It takes some serious care and attention. So we're going to tell you the hard truths today. And the way we're going to do this is I've pulled on two of my most favorite, most respected people to talk about this topic. And so I'm going to introduce them in a minute, but what you're going to see that's so amazing is that they also come from two different perspectives, and you're going to see that open up as well. And so as we did a planning call to kind of prepare for this, one of the things I was just struck by was not just the unity on how we approach this, but also the approach and lenses through which Andrew and Steve take because of their different backgrounds. So this is going to be wildly helpful. Yes, it's recorded. So yes, you can share this out with your team. So with no other further intros, let me get us kicked off. So Andrew, I'm going to start with you. Tell us who you are. Tell us your background. Tell us what you're in the middle of right now.
Sure. So Andrew Szokoly, I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been in the channel working at primarily compliance-based, vertical-focused MSPs since 2012. So I've worked for a number of different growing and scaling MSP organizations, and then more recently MSSP. And my background is in service delivery, operational management, and for the last 5 years or so, I've changed my focus to be on cybersecurity.
Love that. Love it. And so what I love about Andrew, I'm going to pop your LinkedIn here too so people can connect with you. But what I love your background is you come from sort of a pure play security background, which I think is awesome, right? So you're going to approach this today from that lens. Now, Steve, give us an intro. Who the heck are you, my friend? And what's your
Yes.
background? What are you in the middle of today?
Yeah. So Steve Sigmon, been in sales pretty much my whole career life. I think I'm entering in my 21st year in sales, strictly only sales, not even in IT sales. For the last 11 years, I've been with ProSource, known as an office technology company. Spent some years on the office equipment department or tier of our approach. And then since 2018, transitioned over into technologies. Vitus Technologies, which is the technology tier of or arm of ProSource, and really working on developing a sales department in technologies. And over the last 6 years, with a lot of hires, resources added, just working on what the process looks like, what are the KPIs that we're looking at, and really understanding how do we be successful, not only for us as a company, but also for our clients.
Love that. Love it. So Steve, I just posted his LinkedIn profile, so make sure y'all go and follow Steve as well. So Steve, so here's what we're going to do. Steve, I'm going to kick off with a question for you, but let me level set. What we decided to do was it's difficult to just talk about, oh, how do we scale, build, structure a revenue engine for cybersecurity just generically. I don't think you can do it generically. I think it depends on a lot of things. And some of those depend on the size of MSP that you are. And so what we decided to do today is we decided to take this aspect at different revenue bands. So what we're going to do today is we're going to unpack this challenge of how do we build this effectively for an MSP that's under 5 million, maybe an MSP between 5 and 10 million, an MSP that's somewhere between 10 and 25 million. So those are the buckets that we've created. And what you're going to notice is going to come to life in certain areas that really help you focus on this is where we're at today based on what Steve and Andrew were saying. I might be a little off the mark here. Maybe I'm doing more than I ought to be doing. Maybe I'm not doing enough for where I'm at. And so we're going to really help you structure this. And I want you to be engaged in listening because even if we're talking about an MSP band that's 2 steps up from you, it's still extremely valuable for you to hear to dress the part. I want to become that one day. So here's how I should be thinking now as we get ready. So Steve, I want to start with you. One of the most important things that it comes to when we talk about just starting when you're sub 5 million, right? You're still a younger, smaller MSP, is really defining an ideal customer profile or an ICP. Can you talk about why this is so important? And then Andrew, just jump in with thoughts you have as well.
Absolutely. So, it's really the essence of strategy. And, the essence of strategy starts with what am I not going to do? And really understanding, your client profile is the first step, and what are you going to target? And it's really important to stay stern to that client profile, especially early on. As you get bigger, as you have more resources, and maybe you can pivot and tweak here and there, but you're always going to come down to what is your ideal client profile? Why is this your ideal client profile? Probably more important than it is why. If you can answer the why, then the alignment's easy for the rest of the resources. But this is also going to help with operational efficiency. It's going to help with support. It's going to help with all the departments that is made up of your managed services. And but really sticking to that ideal client profile, I learned. I mean, let's be honest. I've been in sales for 20 years, and it's all about how much revenue can I bring in. And there was a little shift and a change and an aha moment I had to learn myself coming into a MSP, because when you get outside of your ideal client profile, there's a lot that can happen that can go wrong. Frustrations externally, obviously, with clients, not hitting the expectations that were set, um, culture, morale. There's a lot of bad things that can happen when you get outside of your client profile. So I think it's first and foremost, you really got to identify who is your target. What does make a good client for your MSP?
And I'll jump in on the operational side of things and talk about some of the challenges that I've seen when you stray. Every MSP is a little different. Your skills and experiences are all unique. So when you're at the table with a prospect and they're asking you to do something, especially in those early years, it's really easy to fall into that pitfall of saying, "Yeah, we'll take that on and we'll figure it out." And you can be successful to a limited extent there. But what tends to happen when you get outside of that target client profile is your technical team may not be able to deliver that well if it's not a part of the processes you've developed. The expectations from those clients may be different as well. So if you get an opportunity to work with a business that's 10 times larger than you, sure, that could be attractive. I'll go hire 3 more techs and we'll go figure this out. But what tends to happen is the client is expecting things in terms of operational maturity, in terms of consistency that you may not be ready to deliver. You may not have the right expertise to do well. And it's easy to say, yeah, we'll figure that out. But what I've seen happen in those situations is you get distracted in trying to mature quickly in those specific areas, as opposed to doing what your team does well. And the real challenge there is that you could find yourself neglecting some of your existing clients that you built your business with, and some of them may move on as the result of that. Or worse still, you bring on that monster client, you try it for a year or two, and then they ultimately leave because their expectations weren't met, either because you're not able to deliver the hours of operations they need, or the response times, or even do things with their custom little processes that they want you to follow, that they create for you as opposed to you creating for them. So there's all
Yeah.
kinds of quagmires that you can get in there, that it's easier in your strategic planning to make sure that your own operational maturity and how that relates to the prospects that you want to go after, so that you're well matched, and you'll be more successful. Your team is going to be less frustrated, and your clients will be happier as a result.
Yeah, I just to add a little bit more and agree 100% what Andrew was talking about. But I kind of, was thinking about this as we were talking, and there's four things that this ultimately will accomplish. It and first and foremost, it's consistency, and as more consistent that we can get, the better experience we're going to give our clients. But we're also going to be able to have improved marketing efforts, sales efficiency, enhanced client experiences, satisfaction, the retention, operational we talked about, but it's going to help with the operational efficiency. But ultimately, it's going to help us become more profitable and sustain the growth that we're after.
Yeah, and if you think about this just in terms of efficiency of your own budget, knowing what verticals you want to make sure you target, it's going to make it easier to, eliminate shows that you're not going to be particularly successful at. You'll make sure that you're in the right user groups to network with the prospects that you want to do business with. There's a lot of science behind that. And it's okay to change, as we will talk about on this call today. That target client profile is going to evolve as your business grows and matures. But you want to make sure you're doing it in a deliberate way, and that you're getting ahead of those potential prospects and making sure you're ready for them.
Love that. So just to wrap that little piece of it, I hope you're hearing two people who have built more revenue than almost anyone I've known are telling you, for a services-based business, revenue is extremely important, but it's not the only story. Because I travel the streets all the time, I talk to MSPs on the reg. I've heard the flip side of what Andrew and Steve have said. Examples of, like, I took a huge client that we weren't ready to support. And not only were we not ready to support them, we were drowned. I overhired to make sure we could meet it. We were making tons of money, more than we've ever made before. And then what happens is that client then gets acquired, and they say, we no longer need your services. The acquisition is providing all the IT and security. See you later. And now the MSP is left holding the bag of oversaturated skilling that they just don't have the capacity for anymore. And then they have to let go 2 or 3 people, and then morale takes a hit. And then they go back, and someone said something really interesting to me a while back. They said, I used to think that was everything. And then when I went back and I looked at my books and I actually started paying attention to financial discipline, I recognized I actually wasn't profitable. Just because I had a super high paying client doesn't make that high profit to me. My EBITDA was garbage because I was over supporting. In this day and age, it's not just like, well, call me, I'll fix a computer, but you're supporting all the line of business applications and all the automations that have to happen. You have to know that industry really well. And so all of a sudden the burden to support was just not there. So I know it's important, and hear us when we say, we understand when you're a young MSP, getting revenue is important. I get it. But biting off more than you can chew can become a really dangerous thing. The other thing I wanted to shift focus into a little bit is just talking about a bit of the product stack at a sub $5 million MSP. Can we talk about that a little bit? And Andrew, I'm going to have you lead with this, of like, when we think about what goes into that product stack and what we offer and how we offer it, there's a lot of attention that needs to be set correctly at that young, growing MSP level. Can you unpack the product stack a little bit for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start by saying what I found is the best approach is to bundle and to kind of put together offerings that are based on industry best practices, so you don't find yourself needing to defend your specific choices for what's included in that stack. If you can come back and say, well, based on CIS best practices, or based on what NIST says, we need to include tools and processes that that protect in these specific areas. Then it takes the burden of convincing your client a little bit off of you. So you can say, hey, I'm not the expert in supporting every client globally for their cybersecurity needs. Other peers in this industry have found that their clients need these technologies, and if they're in a similar space as who you're talking to, it makes it a really easy conversation. Plant that seed early and often, and every time there's a little maybe incident with that client, circle back to them. Hey, if we'd had this technology in place, it would have helped detect this earlier. It would have helped prevent this type of attack. So when you're in that smaller MSP, and I've worked at MSPs of all sizes, What's really important is ease of management, so that your level 1 technical resources can act like level 2s. That'll help you scale up past 5 million. So look for partners that offer managed offerings, or have really good support. You may get a little cheaper price if you go with a tool that you might not be ready for, but your team may drown trying to support it, or they may not understand what they're seeing or dealing with. And that's the benefit of working with these really channel-friendly cybersecurity partners that are so experienced in the space, and really want to make sure that their partners are successful. They'll help you tune those offerings and make sure that the noise is minimal, so that you can do what you do best, which is customer service and helping clients with IT and cybersecurity strategy.
Well said. Well said. So, Steve, talk to us about Vitus and your approach to the stack and advice that you would give to younger, smaller MSPs.
Absolutely, and we do the bundle approach as well. I know coming into this call, maybe people were thinking, oh, they're going to give us the secret sauce, the secret tactic to sell cybersecurity, and there's no secret tactic. It's all about activity and getting into those opportunities. What we sell in the cybersecurity platform, every company needs. I think MSPs would agree with that. It's our jobs to get in front and educate these companies, because they don't know what they don't know. That's what keeps them up at night, is what they don't know. And our approach is very similar. We do package, we bundle, but as a selling approach, it's all about the gap. And for the younger MSPs, or the 5 million and less, really aligning with Andrew talked about NIST. That's one that we align with early on, and having an understanding and being able to articulate the conversation around the 5 components that comes with NIST, now kind of a 6th component that they brought out. Because what I've learned in all of sales is, if there's no problem, there's no opportunity. And sometimes there's a problem, and you could believe that there's a problem, but if the client or prospect doesn't believe that there's a problem, there's no alignment there, then you still don't have an opportunity. And gap selling and understanding the gap and laying out the components and understanding where they are current state and where they could be future state. Now there's a gap, now there's a problem, and you can help align. It helps you align with that prospect or client. Yes, I do have a problem. So, I mean, that's our approach. Andrew talked about like outsourcing and getting with partners early on. We've done that in a couple different areas. And not only does it help you and make sure that you don't take too much of a bite that you can't support, or you're going to give a bad experience, you're also going to learn from that partner. And as you grow, as you become more profitable, now you can start bringing it in-house and internal as where you see fits. And we've had that happen a lot. Just a simple help desk. I know a lot of MSPs under that 5 million might outsource help desk. And not saying that's a bad approach early on. I think it's a great approach. And even later on, it might be the best fit for your MSP. But we learned so much from outsourcing help desk that, as we grew, we saw where we could bring it in-house. And by bringing it in-house, we saved, bottom line, our clients were more happy, survey scores, satisfaction was going up, and we were able to do it because of what we learned by working with a partner.
I want to add on to this something that I'm surprised hasn't come up already in the conversation. Yes, frameworks are important, and it helps your prospect if your target client profile has a bottom floor where you're going to be working with more mature businesses by setting a minimum threshold for revenue or users that you're going to support in a prospect. At a low operational maturity level, you're not going to see a lot of people who really understand or appreciate cybersecurity frameworks. You're going to hear a lot of, oh, it's just going to happen to the other guy. I'm too small. Nobody's going to target me.
Yep.
What I've found to be most successful over the last 3 years is those cyber insurance renewals, where the client gets a questionnaire, and they come back to you and say, hey, are we doing vulnerability management? Do we have EDR? tell me about what's in place for privilege access management, because these questions are starting to come up. And that's your opportunity to fire back with knowledge and to position your offerings. Oh, this is how it's going to help check this box, but also add more value and more protection to your business. And measure those things in terms of what the client understands. During those onboarding meetings, when you're initially vetting a client, it's important to understand, where is their critical data? What systems are most important to them? And then have conversations realistically around, if that system was down for 24 hours, what's that going to cost you in terms of revenue loss? And that's where you can circle back and say, okay, well, if we could reduce the likelihood of that happening to you by more than 50%, and it would cost you $500 a month, how does that compare to the potential risk? You put that back into a business conversation with your stakeholder, with your decision maker, and you're going to see their eyeballs light up, because then they're going to be able to say, oh, this is a really good ROI in terms of my potential for business disruption or reputational harm.
Yep, and just to kind of add in with bundling, I know we're talking like managed security bundling or those kind of packages. One of the things we did early on, we had two types of managed IT agreements. We had what we called a complete IT agreement that has some baseline security offerings, those that you definitely need, multi-layer. But then we had another offering that I think a lot of MSPs are going to, that's a more advanced security offering, which it has everything in the first offering plus 4 to 5 more advanced security solutions, whether that's a managed detection or dark web monitoring and alerting and all. So we've bundled that into a package, and if you haven't done that yet, I highly suggest that's a good starting ground with the services that you have, because our cybersecurity sales went up throughout the years. Some was a la carte, like just with managed security packages, but the majority of it came because we're selling an advanced agreement, managed IT agreement that they're already paying. So we bundled it into that agreement, and that truly helped. And it's what we believe. It's our passion to get these solutions into the community's hands for companies, to keep them mitigated from risk. And when you can align that with what you're selling, it helps. It really truly helps that you have your why, your purpose is for them, for long term, and for them to be successful. And at the end of the day, don't worry about it. We got you covered here. You didn't get in the business to run IT. Let us do that for you. You go do what the core of your business is for, allowing you for more activities around revenue that you can generate.
So I want to add something onto that, and then grab a couple questions out of the chat that I saw that interest me. When you really start to mature your cybersecurity bundles, because a lot of people have a more basic offering, and then you have what that client needs based on their industry, based on their risk tolerance. A lot of times, there's a large cost increase per user, or per device, depending on how you model it, for the additional protection. What I found makes sense is to give those clients runway, but to basically say, hey, we need you to agree to do these things, and we're going to step your price into that over time. So maybe you have adjustments every few months to help close that gap, but just go ahead and deliver that higher quality level of service, knowing that that you're doing what's in the interest of your client, as well as the right thing by your business. There were a couple questions about cybersecurity and around staffing inside a small MSPs.
Jump in.
Yeah, so I'd say under 5 million, it's really common for your founders, for your proprietors, to be doing a lot of the high level engineering work, and your technicians. Hopefully, you've got some strong level 3 techs, some level 2 techs that can help carry that burden. But you tend to see a lot of jack of all trades. So you have somebody in IT maybe started as a tech and grew into a systems administrator or an engineer over time, but they can really do everything, and you need that at that smaller scale. because you can't afford to have, dedicated cyber resources, dedicated cloud engineers. But the downside to that is, lack of specialization. In some cases, you may know everything, and an inch deep and a mile wide, but you're bringing in experts to help you with those managed offerings to fill in those gaps. So it's not common for MSPs to be able to have dedicated cybersecurity unless that is part of the founder's background already, or something they've learned over time. And to address Michael's question about cyber insurance companies, we are seeing a lot of activity in that space. I'd say 3 or 4 years ago, the actuaries, got turned over on their heads with all of these increases in cyber claims, and that's where these questions started coming from. You started seeing what used to be a 1-page or a 2-page questionnaire turn into a 5-page questionnaire. There's some carriers out there that are 7 to 10 pages, and really what they're doing is they're collecting data. They're trying to understand what technologies are in place across their end customers. And then when claims come in, they're tracking those to, what technology, what control, what specific area failed. And that's where we're starting to see those. Hey, you have to have MFA, you have to have, security awareness training, you need to have an EDR or next gen AV, those things that are now table stakes that you have to be doing. Well, you don't have to be the bad guy. Your client's cyber insurance firm is the one asking for these things, and you're just there to help, fill in those gaps.
Andrew, curious on your approach, those questionnaires, are you filling them out for your clients, or are you just consulting with what they need to fill out?
I will never fill out a cyber insurance application on behalf of my client.
Yep.
There's a lot of risk associated with that. I'll get on the phone with the client. I'll even give them the answers to plug in writing, but I'm not putting it on that form, and I'm certainly not signing it, because it's the client's business that's being represented there. And I've had situations where a client filled out the form and then came back to me and said, "Oh, you said that you had this technology." It's like, no. I never filled that out. You did. Here's your signature on the document. Because ultimately, when something happens, everyone's got a boss. Even if it's your bank account, and you own the business, and people look to subjugate that blame down to their carriers. So it's important that the client takes accountability for actually submitting that. And I think that's just an industry-wide best practice. If you're filling those out today on behalf of your clients, I would try to convince you to stop.
1000% agree, and that's why I asked the question, because I think, or I've heard with peers and other MSPs where they were filling these out, and our policy is no, we will not fill one out, we will not sign off on it. We will consult, and to your point, we will give you the answers based off what you have with us, but you're filling it out and you're signing it. It is your data. Ultimately, you are the data owner 100% of the time.
But if you're not looking at those applications and using those questions as a roadmap to help you drive new service creation, you're leaving money on the table. Because when they ask, do you have a business continuity plan? Do you have an incident response plan? There's an opportunity to consult and to help the client in a way that steps away from your traditional relationship as an IT services provider. You're now in the business. You're at the table with the stakeholders at the client, and that's exactly where you want to be. You build that trusted advisor status by helping them really understand their business workflows and how to support them with technology. You get in like that, and that's where the real stickiness comes from. I've never seen a client really be successful in retaining when they want to leave based on the technology that you have deployed, because every one of your competitors is saying that they're going to make that transition easy. What really matters is that you have a seat at that table with the client, and you're helping them with the business outside of the nuts and bolts of technology. If you can speak their language, you'll continue to have a seat at their table.
Well said. Yep.
Love that. So such really great discussion around all of that. And for the audience, give me a yes in chat. One of the things we can do is we can, on the next webinar, we can bring on Will Brooks from Fifth Wall Solutions and have him really walk through in depth the answers to these kinds of things and answer your insurance questions. Give me a yes in chat if you're interested in that, and then we'll queue that up, and we're happy to make that happen. But I need to know that enough folks are interested in that, because cyber insurance is such a big part. Wow, what awesome discussion. So this is why we have this recorded, because I want you to go and share this whole conversation back with your teams. We could continue talking on the sub 5 million, but we're 30 minutes in. Let's shift to the next stage, which I knew was gonna be this way, and I love it. So let's now.
I gotta answer one more question though.
Of course.
'Cause
Yeah, I saw a good one come across.
We're seeing questions about requiring cyber insurance, and I want to be really careful with this. It should be in your MSA that you want that client to have cyber coverage, but what you should not do is dictate the amount of cyber coverage that that client has. They should be working with their insurance broker on that, to understand what they truly need for the business. You don't want to be in a place where the client comes back to you and said, "Hey, you said $1 million was all that was required in your MSA, and that's what I had, and I've been down for 4 days and I've lost 5 million." It's like, okay, well, you should not be prescribing or giving financial advice to clients. Sorry, I saw those, Wes.
No, it's great. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. I want to make sure we answer the rest of those. So super quickly, DA asked, how do you avoid fox in the hen house, what we call conflict of interest? This is why, just in super quick summation, this is why you need a partner that can do these things for you and provide the overwatch for you. If you look at like a large bank, the way they provide the conflict, the avoidance of the conflict of interest and separation of duty is those that are providing security overwatch are not those that are configuring. And so those that watch are not those that do. And you can offer that by choosing a qualified third party that's going to help you in that security oversight. And that's how you avoid it. It should not be you, of course, as we kind of go forward. So lots of yeses on cyber insurance, which I love that. So we'll queue that up. Danielle and I will get to work on having the Fifth Wall folks come and join us. So stay tuned. Those of you that found out about our webinar, make sure you're following our emails so you'll be notified. So let's shift into the 5 to 10 million. So now we have an MSP that's really started to grow past that 5 million. It's not just the owner hustle. They've identified an ICP. They're good with it, or several. They know how to speak to it. They know how to scale it up. So Andrew, back to you. How do we really start to think about those next steps of scale and growth? Now that we have the plan in place, the railroad tracks are in place, what's next in that 5 to 10 million range?
Well, what you're going to find is that the processes that work for you at 2 million don't work for you at 8 million. They certainly don't work for you at 15 million. So be ready to question assumptions, be ready to make modifications. And this is where we start to see a lot of MSPs join peer groups or align themselves to published best practices like the Sleek framework or the True Methods framework. Both of them are really great places to go for ideas on what's going to work for your team. But you're going to start to see, you might have some dedicated account managers. You might get to the point where you've got a dedicated service manager at this point, and you start to see more opinionated people trying to drive the way that the business runs. And to maintain consistency, you need to make sure that your processes are documented. You need to make sure that you've got good, clean SOPs for your core business operations. EOS says, your goal should be to have more than 80% of your business operations documented. You'll never document everything. Don't try. But it is a continual pursuit of making your documentation better, specifically the things that get used a lot. And some of the ways of training teams that I've found to be most impactful are all team meetings, morning huddles, things like that are going to really help communicate clearly and share knowledge with the team, set expectations when things went wrong, and reinforce those processes that you've now created. You hear all the time, like, you got to hear something 7 times before it sticks. I found that to be true over and over and over again.
Love that. I want to zoom into that more, and let's get practical. Steve, One of the luxuries we have with you on the call is you've taken Vitus from that smaller MSP all the way. I know you're well past that 5 to 10 million range, but you were there during those days. Walk me through what a 5 to 10 million dollar MSP should look like in terms of like staffing, VCIOs, what do you call it? What are the roles that you
Yeah.
start to look for in those revenue ranges? And how do you build and structure this?
Absolutely. And in 5 to 10 million is when we saw all this. And, when I came over to Vitus from the same company, ProSource, we were about an $8 million business. So we were on the upper half of this tier. We had one individual, what we call new logo sales representative. And this is what we were going to build is a sales department, new sales, net new. And but we learned really quickly that we were having, or I guess the struggles that we were having, is we were having highly intelligent IT background resources, and expecting them to go pick up the phone and make 500 cold calls in 1 week. And there are a few out there, 100%. There's definitely ones out there that can do it. But we were struggling with growing the company. We were seeing, 2, 3, 4% growth year after year. So we knew we had to make a change, and that's when we really started thinking about roles and responsibilities, organizational work, or work chart, where were we missing when it came to sales, and then we separated it into net new sales and then client success, and that was our account management team. BCIO, you hear that term a lot. We call them strategic technical account managers. And during this time, you're going to start seeing that you're growing. So that means your client base is growing. You need to start thinking about like how many clients can each strategic technical account manager can have. One of the things that we saw that we were struggling with is, we give the responsibility of the STAM to be out in front of our clients, having conversations, stop bys, doing their QBRs. We call them technology and alignment planning sessions, budgeting. They're on the road a lot. They're in meetings a lot. We started hearing from our clients, the voice of the clients. And if you're not surveying, 100% you should be surveying your clients. The voice of the clients are truly important to helping fix problems. And sometimes it's fixing your own problem. But what we were hearing is, I can never get a hold of my strategic technical account manager. I'm just going to call him account manager, so it'd be quicker. But and we start realizing like, hey, we had a problem here. And so we introduced a role that we call the client success specialist. And easy way to explain it, they're like an inside sales admin person that can help generate quick quotes if it's a laptop or a PC. Standard quotes they can generate really quick. That way the client doesn't have to wait on it for when the account manager comes back in. But also the administration side and any work that needs to be done for reconciling or whatever it may be, they could be responsible for. And this was a true home run for us. We saw the survey start going up. This is a person that's going to be in front of their computer 90% of the time. They're able to facilitate inquiries that questions that are coming in from their clients. And again, this isn't support tickets. That's going through the different channel. But anything that they're inquiring about, it's being heard, it's being read, and they can say, hey, I hear you. I'll get this facilitated, get it over. Sometimes they can just take care of it. Other times, they can just set the expectation of what's next, but we heard you, we're on this. And just that little thing is all the client needs, instead of waiting 2 days before an account manager can get to it. And then now they're wondering, do they even see this? Do they even care? Is anybody working on it? Sometimes just saying, I don't have an update, but I'm still working on it is great. And they know that you're still working on it. So that was one of the biggest things around the account management. As far as sales in that 5 to 10 range, to be honest, we didn't really grow the sales team in that range. I came on and one of the things that I told Jeff, our president, was, I don't want to just come in and start hiring people and create this department. I really want to go live it. So for my first 2 years, I sold it as a net new sales rep, and learning the language, understanding the process, where it differs from my previous sales roles, and really just behind the scenes trying to put this game plan together. But I think that is something that you need to start thinking about in this range. Um, a lot of MSPs under 5 that's getting ready to get over 5 might still have owners or high level officers or whatever it may be, still doing some of the net new selling, or like, they're not really hunting, but a referral comes in. Oh, the owner will go out and talk to them. That's not going to scale to get to the tiers that you want to get to. And but in that range, or in that tier, the 5 to 10, you should start thinking about, who can I bring in, and more importantly, who can I bring in that can go sell, but also this is the person that I want to start developing this department, and that's what we did and worked for us.
So I want to jump on top of that last part of your statement around developing the department. What I found to be successful in helping keeping those simple questions, out of the inboxes of the business owners, are to put together consistent processes. And that's not even just on the service delivery side of the house. It's relevant to make sure that once you have 2 or 3 of those account managers, maybe 5 or 6, that they're all working the same way. Where do your meeting notes go? How do they get communicated to the team? What do you do whenever a project opportunity gets created as a part of a meeting? How do you follow up on a CSAT response? How do you do a QBR? You want to make sure that all of those things stay consistent across your account management team, so that when you need to make a specific tweak to the process as a result of some feedback, it's easier to do that and retrain everyone than to have conversations with several different people and just hope that they get it over time.
Yeah.
Love that. So
I saw
go
a
ahead.
question come in just on the client success specialist and how they're comped. So for us, we treat it quite like an administration job. So it's a salary, and then they have some quarterly incentives that they can receive bonuses on. And typically there's 3 or 4 different incentives that they can hit each tier. They can hit 1 or all 0 to all 4. And they range from individual performance, if they have some individual responsibilities that we can measure, all the way up to company contribution and budget. Hitting the company hit numbers, we're going to deliver a bonus.
Yeah, and
Not
if
sales related. No commission for deals, anything like that. It is more of administration.
I'll give you one specific example of something that I've done in that space that I thought was really impactful, and that is, your quoting board, your sales board, start measuring SLAs on it. You can have an incentive or an MBO for those client experience, customer success type roles, tied to how quickly those quotes get turned around. There's a lot of ways that measure them outside of what you would do from service delivery, SLAs in general, response time, resolution time. Those things still apply. Your PSA can do those on your sales boards as well.
And we use Net Promoter Score, NPS, and one of their measurements is customer satisfaction. That's part of their role, is to make sure the client's taken care of. So that's one of the things that they will be measured on.
If you're not doing NPS, I would highly recommend it. Your CSAT measurements are flawed because they're not generally coming from your decision makers. They're coming from field managers or end users, and those are not the people that signed your contract renewal. It's important to make sure that you smell the smoke. If you've got one of your main point of contacts that doesn't feel the love anymore, can't get the strategic direction that they need, and it's really important. NPS is one of the best ways that I found to actually figure that out, because it gives them the opportunity to just give you candid, direct feedback.
Man, that is a great point. I think we could spend a lot of time on it, but just something quickly that we've done. So we do surveys after support tickets, but to Andrew's point, that that's, even though they might be high, that might not be the way our point of contacts or decision makers, or what we call the VIP members of the account, are thinking. So we introduce quarterly pulse surveys, and that we send out only to our main point of contacts. We send out to anybody labeled a VIP, which is going to be owners, presidents, some other executive type positions, to get their side of things, and it is definitely a different story. One, they're going to rate you harder. Your owners and VPs, they're going to rate you harder, and then that's okay. That's giving you the opportunity to really get inside how they're feeling about the relationship. And I think one of our questions is, how do you view this relationship? Is it strategic? Is it just necessary? Are we just a subordinate vendor to you? So we can understand how they view it, because we might view it one way, they're going to view it a totally different way. And if we don't have that alignment, it gives us the opportunity to have those conversations.
Love this. Love it. What great conversation. So at this point, what I'm hearing, just a couple of points that stuck out to me, is when we're in the owner hustle, that 0 to 5 million, we're just trying to get to define the stack, define the ICP, be consistent with that. When we start hitting that next step of that up to 10 million, that anywhere from, really 5 to 10, we start to say, how do we structure? How do we start building the ability to know that we can scale with this? Because what worked back then does not work now. So now we hit this next stage, this 10 to 25 million, right? And now things really start to change, Steve. And I know that you saw that because you took ProSource and Vitus into that next stage. Walk me through what life looks like between that 10 and that 25 million mark. And one of the things I'm going to preempt you with, Steve, is I see a lot of MSPs sell at 10 million because they struggle with this next step. They don't know how to get past this. Well, I've done everything as the owner and I can close the deals. Now I'm watching a bunch of deals fall through on the back end at the same clip that I'm getting new clients. I feel like I'm on a treadmill. I've been doing this for 2 to 3 years and I'm tired and I'm burnt out. And I think I'm ready to sell to someone bigger. Walk me through how we start thinking about getting from that 10 to 25, especially from a cybersecurity perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is when, and I'll give you my personal experience, knowing that in the background, as I was selling, that I needed to kind of structure what this department was going to look like. And you have to have a plan. You also have to have a leadership team that is on board with it. People that you can run past ideas and, just have conversations with. But this is when you really start thinking about, okay, how are we going to hire a sales rep? And what are we going to look for? And I think it's very important to, and this is, we work with a third party to have insight of personality traits and really understand what are we looking for a sales position. Now, fortunately for us, ProSource started in '85, has worked with the company for 30 plus years doing this. And we were able to, instead of just going to find someone who knows IT, let's go find that sales professional and really start putting the process in place where we had IT resources that will help the sales professional close business because they're closers without even knowing it. They'll never admit that they are, but what we found is when you hire a sales professional, they're going to be doing the dirty work. They're going to be doing the hardest thing about sales, and that's picking up the phone, that's prospecting, that's building pipelines. In my opinion, the sales is easy when you get them into the process. The hardest part about sales is just getting them into the process. And that's what we're hiring, those hunters. I've learned that in the sales world that you either are a good hunter or a good farmer. And rarely are you good at both. And sometimes it's hard to even be good at both. You don't have enough time if you have all these accounts that you are taking care of. So we right away switched it or flipped it to where we have a hunting team, a net new team, and we have the account management team, which is our farming team. And identifying, the different traits. And I can tell you, account managers are going to, on our team, are going to be much more technical. They get the technology, they understand it, they can have conversations to a certain point that the net new sales rep cannot. So we knew that we had to give them a resource throughout the process to be able to have those conversations. And so we identified a area or a role to hire that we call a solutions architect. And it's pretty much like a pre-sales engineer, high level technical person, been with the company for a long time, and can also explain the technology to where I can understand it. And I always say that because I like to play the dumbest person on the call, because I'm always learning. And if I can understand it, most likely everybody else can understand it. And what this allowed is, okay, hunters, you go out there, I'm going to measure you on KPIs, your activity, how many appointments, introductions you're having. And then when we get to that discovery phase, that assessment phase, we're going to bring in a solutions architect who's going to do all the data digging, scanning, whatever it may be, to get what they need so we can put a proposal in front of them. And there was just I don't even know the word to use. It was just a beautiful transition from, all right, I got this salesperson who's telling me everything I want to hear, or at least that's what I'm perceiving. That's what most people think about us salespeople. And then all of a sudden I got this IT person coming in, just validating every single thing that sales rep said. Holy crap, this is great. And it just is, it works. So, I mean, I think the leadership side and having somebody to be able to dedicate their time to put the process in place, because it's much more than just putting together resources to go out there and hunt. You got to think about sales process, talk tracks, alignment with the external prospects and clients, and also internally. The selling process and the KPIs, all of that stuff needs to be in place and ready to go. You can't just look at results. If you look at results, as much as I want to sell a managed IT client every single day, we know it's not going to happen. But we can look at KPIs. Are we putting in those key performance indicators that will get to the results that we want? And my team, if they're on here, they're probably going to laugh at this, but I always say, stress about your activity. Don't stress about the results. If you stress about your activity, if you're upset at the end of the day because you didn't get to your activity, then that should be a problem. You need to fix it. But if you can go to bed, be like, hey, I did what I need to do activity-wise, the results will come. I promise you. And so.
Well said. Andrew.
Yeah. So I'll jump in from the operations side of the house, and a number of things are going to change when you get above 10 million in revenue. You're probably working with some bigger clients, and you probably now have the budget to hire some subject matter experts, maybe even have a dedicated security engineer or group of security engineers working in a team. And there's opportunity there for a couple different things. Your clients are bigger, and when your clients are bigger, they're going to start to ask you for customizations to your processes. And you may find that those solutions that you were working with early on are not passing muster with the larger organizations you're working with. So you may find yourself, deciding, hey, I actually need to manage and process the alerts from my own EDR, and work with, somebody a little more upscale in that space, so that you have more customizable control and can provide the reporting that your clients are asking for. But the real fun in this space comes from the types of additional consultative work that you can do with your clients once you start to get those dedicated security engineers on your team, those vCISO type resources. Even you get to start helping clients write policy. Technology acceptable use policies is a great place to start. And these are all projects. These are professional services engagement. You're not doing it out of the goodness of your heart, but it does have an impact on your bottom line and your clients' preparedness in the event of an incident. So use technical user acceptance documentation where they say, oh, I'm not going to just plug in a computer from Best Buy onto the network. And no, I'm not going to try to turn my EDR off because it's slowing my computer down. And I will complete my cybersecurity training within 30 days of it being assigned. All those things that that your employees need to do to be successful at scale, to not interfere with the activity of your cyber team. And tabletop exercises are another great way to build that trusted advisor status with your clients. I normally bring a technology acceptable use document printout for that client, their disaster recovery plan, as well as their incident response plan to that tabletop on paper and with a pen as we go through scenarios. I make notes in real time. Hey, we need to strengthen this. We need to change how we approach that. And you always come out of that with a stronger relationship and better prepared to deal with anything that comes up.
And just to add a little bit more, I think this is the time as an owner, as VPs, that you really need to consider mid-level management. Having your teams are growing, as you're growing, you need more support techs, you need more project engineers, you need more resources. And there comes a time where you rely on people who helped you get there as a manager, that you have responsibility for them to work on the business still, but also they need to work in the business. And you can really start separating that, where if you can have a mid manager working in the business, direct roll up to, and then have directors, doesn't have to be, executives or anything, but like a director that can work on the business with you as like a mini leadership team for your MSP. And it is something that we did throughout this phase.
Love that. Love that. So at this point, and I know we're pretty much out of time, we got 2 minutes. So I want you just to tease quickly, and maybe we'll just have to bring you on for a follow-up webinar where we dive in deeper. But what does the 25 plus world look like once we kind of get out of that world? Just maybe like a minute for each of you. What does that look like?
Oh, Angie, you want to start?
Sure. From an operational side, you really want to make sure that you're considering your own business continuity. You're probably, on some list of larger MSPs, and you personally, your business is going to be a target. There's going to be people knocking at your door. So that's where I would ask you, look into using maybe a compliance framework as a way to map out your own cybersecurity, whether it's CIS, IG2. I call it IG2.5. You can't quite get to 3 yet, but making sure that that you're as mature as you can be. A SOC 2 is a good way on paper to be able to make sure that you have the processes in place that are generally accepted to be best practices. And then you're restructuring your teams again. You start probably scaling into even more advanced vertical specialization, teams for specific technologies, so that you can scale that client touch that you're used to as your business continues to grow. Because the worst feedback you can get is, I just feel like a number to you guys. You're not the same business that you used to be anymore. And making sure that your clients get a consistent group of people that you're working with so that they can build those relationships. That's what creates the stickiness.
Love that, Steve.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off it, and I think it starts again with your ICP, that ideal client profile, because it's going to change a little bit. Maybe, the core of your structures. I think what happens when you get to this size, you have a lot of different types of managed service offerings. You can throw phones in there. You can throw cybersecurity, continuity, cloud solutions. And I think you really got to start having kind of a playbook. And, these managed service offerings, what clientele, what's the ICP for each one? And some of them can be multiple, but I can tell you, typically the ranges that you see in the profile is small business from like 1 to 20 users, SMB 21 to 100. You got small, medium, and mid market that starts at over 100, goes up to 3,000. Then you got enterprises, 3,000 to 10,000, large enterprise 10,000 plus. And one of the things I learned early on in my career with the technology sales is, all these lanes are nice, but you really got to define who you are and what lane that you want to be in. And what I've learned over time is, all right, if we have 6 service offerings, each tier can have a service offering. And, our tier that we want to be in, whether that's SMB, small, mid market, all 6 of them fit perfectly there. But then as we get into the next tier, maybe it's 3 of them. And we get to that final tier, maybe it's 0, or maybe it's one. But it starts there, I believe, in understanding where you want to go. And then I also will say, typically, this is where you start kind of diving into some larger accounts, maybe outside of your lane. Co-managed starts coming into play a lot. vCISO services, maybe you're adding services. It's something that we just did. We added vCISO services this year to our plate. It's a different clientele, and understanding that and having that playbook. But also just realize if you bring on some of these larger clients, they're going to need a different type of support, from a technical support and user support, because there's a little bit more complexity to their environment, but also as an account management support. They might be looking for that really high knowledge CIO type person managing their account. That doesn't fit well with the small business CIO or VCIOs. So it's stuff that you just got to think about, that there is options to grow your services, but every single service you bring on, you got to make sure you can support, can have great account management, ultimately giving the client experience that you gave when you were a $5 million MSP. And that's what you don't want to lose.
Love that. What an awesome conversation, Danielle. I will tell you, I've loved every second of this. I knew it was going to be good, and it was. This is why it's recorded. Make sure you go and share this out with your teams, your peer groups. Andrew and Steve, y'all did not have to join. Y'all did not have to give your thoughts and wisdom and experience. You have nothing to sell. You're a fellow to everyone else in this boat, but the kind of humans that you are, you're givers and you're contributors and you're helpers. So I want to just say thank you to both of you. There's their LinkedIn. I popped it in again. Give them both a follow. Say hello to them. Reach out. They're just, you guys have sage wisdom and advice today. Danielle?
Big time, definitely. Thank you for joining us. And like Wes said, we'll share the recording out, guys, on social. It's also on our YouTube channel. We'll share that out there on there. And again, yes, thanks big time to Andrew and Steve for joining and for sharing all your guys' wisdom with the community. So be on the lookout for the recording, and maybe we'll even continue. It sounds like there's plenty to be continue the conversation. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks everybody for joining. That's it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.